10,585 people murdered by licensed, authorized serial killers in Canada in 2021. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. Today, True North shared an article on X involving Maid, the medical assistance and dying program in Canada. Their story chronicled the story of a Canadian Armed Forces veteran who was encouraged to engage the Maid program because she was feeling depressed. In that article, there was a link to an interview that Andrew Lawton did with a fellow named Alexander Rakin, who wrote a piece for an American publication on the Canadian Maid program. I'm going to insert that clip here, and it is linked below in the description. As a matter of fact, I put most of my source materials, I try to link as much as possible in the description of my videos. I know not all YouTubers do that, but I think that it is very important for people to have access to the source material without having to dig around for it. So I encourage everyone to go and check out the description of the videos. There's always lots of information down there, including the links to all of my source material. So let's take a look at that clip from the Andrew Lawton show.
The death of free speech is incredibly important, but it is an issue that pales in comparison to some of the very real and very mounting deaths that are taking place across the country because of Maid, the euphemistic name for doctor-assisted suicide. A fantastic, but I will also say chilling piece in the National Review by Alexander Rakin, how death care pushed out health care. It's long been established, even when Maid restrictions were fairly stringent in nature, that there were situations where these rules were being bended, where capacity rules, eligibility rules were. And if you keep that pattern in place and you expand the regulations, it stands to reason that it will become even more permissive as time goes on.
Exactly. Every day in 2021, more than 29 Canadians died by the hands of their physicians or nurses. That's double the official suicide rate.
One of the things that I found interesting was situating Canada in the global context, because I used to, when this issue came up, look to the Netherlands and Switzerland, I think, and be like, oh, although like we're never going to, I don't know if I would have ever said we're never going to be like that, but I certainly would have said we're far off from that. Whereas how would you actually, having done the research and the legwork, rank Canada against some of those really permissive approaches to this in Europe?
Oh, I mean, we already have the largest and most permissive assisted suicide program in the world. In the Netherlands and Belgium, they have additional safeguards where if a patient wants to apply for euthanasia or assisted suicide, they have to at least try some acceptable level of medical treatment first, right? This is a very commonsensical safeguard. In the Netherlands, physicians would not push Maid onto patients. And yet we have stories of exactly that. In the Netherlands, there are review processes. There are no such review processes in Canada. So we're already far ahead. I mean, just look at the numbers, right? Between, over a span of 7 years, we're on track to have a 13-fold increase in the number of euthanasia and the number of deaths from euthanasia. We have never seen that anywhere in the world.
Where do you think this goes from here? Because I do feel like the government, when it loosened the restrictions and put that change in place on the mental illness aspect, that was a turning point. And that was what moved this from a lot of into a territory where a lot of people were very uncomfortable with this, and even people that you wouldn't call social conservatives or pro-life activists. Do you see that continuing, or do you think, like anything else, people will talk about it for a couple of moments and then kind of forget about it and move on?
I don't think people are going to be able to forget about this or move on. I mean, just look at the disability community. You have over 140 disability organizations nationwide saying that the latest expansion to Maid was a direct threat to their lives. Over 140. Several human rights experts at the United Nations condemning Canada for expanding Maid to those who are not terminally ill. So it's pretty fascinating to think about this. Right? We had over 140 disability organizations, pretty much every single major disability organization in Canada made a firm statement against Maid. So I don't think that people are going to be able to forget this or move on. When we're talking about the massive normalization that certain lives are not worth living, the largest impact is on patients. Patients like Rachel, who I spoke to, and I talk about in my piece. She's someone with disabilities chronic disability. She has a chronic pain condition. She has depression. And yet when she tried to get help for her depression by calling suicide hotlines, she was instead being advised to look up Dying with Dignity Canada. Like, think about what that means. You call a suicide prevention hotline, and instead you're getting recommended ways for you to die from assisted suicide. And she said, and I'll read this quote, "I've been afraid, over those last couple of years to go to just my local hospital because I was afraid that if any doctor either brought up Maid themselves or met my kind of ambivalent desire for Maid, all I needed was a push and I'll be dead right now." So it doesn't seem to be kind of a coincidence that you have the largest expansion of euthanasia ever seen in the world in a voluntary euthanasia system happening at the same time that Canada's healthcare system is disintegrating.
Well, personally, I think that's very chilling indeed. I am absolutely appalled by this. Now, I agree with self-determination. I think that you have control over your own destiny and that nobody should take that away from you. If you are in excruciating pain and you're suffering from a debilitating terminal illness and you decide that you want to die in dignity, I think that that is your choice. And if you need assistance in that, I'm okay with that. But when they've expanded this to mental health, that's where it truly gets evil in my book. I had 5 major takeaways from this video. First, in 2021, which was the latest year of data that we have, the Maid program was killing 29 people per day. That is 10,585 people per year. That's double what the suicide rate was that year. Second, Canada has the most permissive Maid program in the world. Third, the UN has condemned Canada for expanding their Maid program to mental health issues. 4, I found it very disturbing that doctors were pushing patients to the Maid program. And 5, it is very disturbing that when a person calls a suicide prevention line, when they're directed to Maid, these people are asking for help. And the suicide prevention lines are assuming that they want help in committing suicide. No, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for help. They're looking for an alternative to ending their lives. Back in the day, there used to be movies about dystopian societies that were getting rid of their people, the people that were not deemed productive. And we've actually seen this in history. Hitler and Stalin both did this. And now Trudeau is doing it. Now Trudeau's getting them to sign away their lives first, but he's doing it. He's the one who expanded this program. He brought it in the first place, but now he's expanding it. And as I said, I don't have a problem with people who are suffering in excruciating pain and they are near the end of their lives and they just want to go out with dignity. I don't have a problem with that. But I absolutely have a problem with people who are not near the end of their lives, who are treatable, and Trudeau is assisting them. The most horrifying part of that interview was when Alexander Rakin talked about Rachel, who was seeking help. She didn't want to commit suicide. She called the suicide prevention line for the help that she needed, and she was referred to Maid. And when she said that she was afraid to go to her local hospital because she thought that she would be pushed towards Maid, and she may very well have gone through with it. That's pretty scary. Back when I was on the force, we used to bring people to the hospital all the time who had mentioned that they were possibly thinking about maybe committing suicide. Well, as soon as we heard that, we took them to the hospital. And we would sit with them for the better part of a 12-hour shift, sometimes as much as 10 hours. And we presented them to a doctor. The doctor would sometimes talk to them for as little as 3 minutes and then kick them out, saying, well, they're not suicidal now. And sometimes that would end tragically because a person would end their lives and there'd be no consequence for the doctor. But what's happening now? The doctors are pushing it, offering it, presenting it as a solution to people's problems. If that doesn't disturb you, there's something wrong. In my opinion, pushing someone to suicide, not just helping a person at the end of their life, but actually pushing someone to suicide is criminal. It's murder. It's evil. This is an example of the deterioration of the human species under socialism. Make no mistake, we need to change and we need to change fast. Our direction is going straight downhill. Trudeau calls people who are conservative, slightly conservative, or centralists, he calls them extremists. Well, what is this? But that's just my opinion. I'd love to know what you think. Put your comments down below. And while you're at it, please like this video, share with your friends, and on social media. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Oh, and by the way, I still have a link to a petition that you can sign if you wish to do so, urging Mary Simon, the Governor General, to dissolve Parliament and call an early election. Also, there's a link in the description to my other channel, Cavalryman USA, where I discuss U.S. politics. If that's something you'd be interested in, check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.